They thought humiliating me would break me. They forgot what I do for a living.
They thought humiliating me would break me. They forgot what I do for a living. The night my father's fist connected with my jaw, I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt. It hurt like hell, the kind of pain that splits your vision white and makes your ears ring like a fire alarm. But Lieutenant Commander Aliana Roger doesn't cry in front of an audience. And that night, there were 68 of them watching. My brother Marcus's promotion party, the ballroom of the Hargrove Hotel, draped in navy blue and gold, filled with officers, family, friends, neighbours and people who had known me since I was 7 years old. I had flown in from my posting in Norfolk specifically to celebrate him. I wore my dress whites. I smiled at people who asked how I was doing. I shook hands and accepted champagne and pretended for 3 hours that this family was normal. Then my father found the reason to remind me it wasn't. It started over something small, it always does with him. A comment I made about Marcus's chain of command. A gentle observation that his new posting carried serious ethical responsibilities. My father's eyes went cold the way they always do before a storm. He told me to watch my mouth. I told him quietly that I was simply stating fact. That was when his hand moved. The crack of it echoed off the marble floors. People froze mid-conversation. Glasses stopped halfway to lips. Someone gasped. I stumbled sideways, not from weakness, but from pure shock that he had actually done it here in public in front of everyone. Then he grabbed my hair. I want you to understand what that feels like, not as a woman, but as a senior military officer who has spent 15 years earning every ribbon on that uniform. To be grabbed by the hair like a disobedient child. To be dragged, literally dragged, across a ballroom floor while 68 people watched in silence. My heels scraped against the marble. My vision blurred, not from tears, from fury. He threw open the side exit and shoved me through it. "You don't belong in there," he said. "You never did." The door closed behind him. And then silence. I stood in the cold night air, jaw throbbing, hair loose from its pin, dress white still perfect because I had trained myself to keep my composure even when my world was collapsing. I pressed 2 fingers to my cheekbone, checked for blood. There was none. Just the deep, blooming pain of a man who had spent 30 years reminding me that my accomplishments meant nothing to him. I could hear the party continuing inside. And then, through the thin wall, I heard my brother's voice, clear and loud and almost cheerful. "You had it coming." Laughter, actual laughter, and then the music resumed. No one came outside to check on me. Not one person in that room, not a family friend, not a cousin, not a single soul who had watched a man assault his daughter in formal dress, came through that door. I stood there for 4 minutes, I know because I counted. Then I straightened my jacket, repinned my hair, and I took out my phone. Here is what my family didn't know about me, what most people don't know, because my work doesn't appear in headlines or personnel files that civilian relatives can access. For the past 6 years, I have not simply been a Navy officer. I have been attached to a joint federal task force specializing in financial crimes, defense contractor fraud, and military ethics violations. I have a security clearance that most people in that ballroom couldn't pronounce the classification level of. I have spent 6 years learning exactly how power works, how it's abused, how it's hidden, and more importantly, how it unravels when someone with the right access decides to pull the right thread. My father is a retired colonel, respected, decorated, a man who has spent 20 years building a post-military consulting career advising defense contractors on government bids. My brother Marcus is his protege, freshly promoted, being fast-tracked in ways that had always seemed to me slightly too fast. I had never looked closely before. He was my brother. I had chosen for years to look away. Standing in that cold parking lot with a bruise forming on my face, I decided to stop looking away. I made one call. Not to police, though what my father did was criminal, and I documented it carefully with photos of my face, a written account timestamped 11:47 p.m., and the names of 68 witnesses. That documentation went to my JAG contact before midnight. The call I made was to a colleague, a woman I had worked alongside for 3 years on financial fraud cases, a woman who owed me a favor the size of an aircraft carrier, and who had access to databases that could illuminate 6 years of defense contract activity in about 40 minutes. "I need you to run a name," I said. 2 names. Tonight. Right now. She was quiet for a moment. Then, how bad do you want it to be? I want the truth, I said, whatever that is. By 2 a.m., I had 37 pages of preliminary findings in my secure inbox. By 4 a.m., my JAG contact had looped in a federal investigator. By 6 a.m., the investigator had made 2 additional calls, one to a U.S. Attorney's office, one to the Inspector General's office of the Department of Defense. I slept for 3 hours on a hotel room bed, ice pack on my jaw, and when I woke up I ordered black coffee and read every page twice. My father had been steering government consulting contracts, worth across 6 years approximately $34 million, to a firm in which he held a quiet financial interest through a shell company registered in Delaware. My brother, in his previous posting, had signed off on 2 of those contracts without disclosing the conflict of interest. It was elegant, in the way that corruption is sometimes elegant, layered, patient, structured to survive casual scrutiny. It did not survive mine. I want to be clear about something. I did not do this out of revenge. I did not pick up that phone because my face hurt or because 68 people watched and said nothing or because my brother had laughed. I did it because I have spent 15 years in service to a set of values that my father taught me, ironically, to hold above everything else: integrity, accountability, the understanding that rank is not a shield. He taught me well, he just never expected me to apply those lessons to him. I did not attend the follow-up calls, I did not speak to journalists, I did not post anything online. I returned to Norfolk, filed my personal statement with JAG regarding the physical assault, and went back to work. What happened next unfolded without my direct involvement, the way these things do once the machinery of federal accountability starts moving. My father's consulting contracts were frozen pending investigation. His firm's finances were subpoenaed. My brother was placed on administrative leave while the DoD Inspector General reviewed his contract approvals. 3 other officers connected to the same contracting network were flagged for review. My mother called me, screaming, at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. I let it go to voicemail. My aunt sent a long message calling me a traitor to the family. I read it once and archived it. A cousin texted, "Why would you do this to us?" I thought about the 68 people in that ballroom, the silence, the music starting back up, my brother's voice carrying clearly through the wall. "You had it coming." I typed back 3 words, "I know, accountability." Then I blocked the number and went back to my debrief notes. People sometimes ask me, colleagues mostly, who have heard pieces of the story, whether I feel guilty, whether I lie awake wondering if I went too far. I'll tell you what I tell them. My father committed a federal crime long before he put his hand on me. My brother participated in fraud against the American taxpayer. Those facts existed independently of anything that happened in a hotel ballroom. I didn't create those facts. I simply stopped pretending they didn't exist. What happened to me that night didn't make me a victim. It made me clear. There is a difference between a woman who is broken by humiliation and a woman who is simply, finally, done making allowances. I am Aliana Roger. I am a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy. I have served for 15 years with a record that speaks for itself, in rooms that most people will never be cleared to enter. My father thought he was throwing me out of a party. He was actually removing the last reason I had to look the other way. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there is standing in a cold parking lot right now being told they had it coming. Let them know your silence is a choice, and so is your next move.